The observation deck of the wandering star hummed with the soft vibration of engines pushing through deep space. Saren Vale sat cross-legged on the cold metal floor, her helmet resting between her knees like a sacred object. Around her lay scattered tubes of specialized paint, crimson, gold, silver, and deep violet, each one designed to bond with the composite alloy of standard-issue human spacefaring gear. She worked with the precision of someone who had done this 100 times before. Though this was only her third helmet since joining the Galactic Expedition Corps, the brush moved in careful strokes across the curved surface, creating swirling patterns that resembled ancient Earth mandalas mixed with constellation maps. It was a human thing, this need to personalize, to mark what was theirs, to transform the uniform into the unique. The Galactic Council had never understood it. The xylopods kept their equipment pristine and identical. The crystalline harmonics considered any modification to be an insult to the manufacturer. Even the usually chaotic nebula drifters maintained standardization in their gear, if nothing else in their lives. But humans painted. They carved. They added stickers and patches and wrote names of loved ones on the inside of their helmets where no one else would ever see. Saren was so absorbed in her work that she didn't hear the soft padding of feet approaching. Didn't notice the small shadows that crept closer, drawn by curiosity and the strange, pungent smell of the paints. The Valkyrie cubs had been aboard the ship for 3 cycles now, refugees from a collapsed colony station that the wandering star had rescued during a routine patrol. Their guardians, what remained of their clan, were being treated in medical bay for exposure injuries, leaving the young ones to wander the ship under the loose supervision of whoever was off duty. Kaptira was the boldest of the group, a small creature covered in silver-gray fur with enormous amber eyes that seemed to absorb everything. She approached first, her triangular ears swiveling forward with interest. Behind her came 3 others, smaller and more hesitant, but equally fascinated by this strange human ritual. Saren finally sensed their presence when a tiny sneeze broke the silence. She looked up to find 4 pairs of luminous eyes staring at her. 4 small bodies frozen in that universal posture of children caught doing something they weren't sure was allowed. "Hey there," Saren said softly, setting down her brush. She'd learned in her brief time with the Valkyrie that sudden movements startled them. "Want to see what I'm doing?" Kaptira's ears perked up even higher. She chittered something in the melodic Valkyrie language, still untranslated by the ship's AI for the younger ones, and took a cautious step forward. Saren gestured to the helmet, turning it slightly so they could see the design taking shape. "It's my helmet, for spacewalks. I'm painting it." The cubs crept closer, forming a small semicircle around her. Their eyes tracked every movement as Saren demonstrated, dipping the brush in gold paint and adding a delicate line that spiraled outward from the center of the design. Kaptira reached out one small paw, then hesitated, looking up at Saren with a questioning trill. "You want to try?" Saren asked, surprised. The cub's whole body seemed to vibrate with excitement. The others chittered among themselves, a cascade of musical sounds that needed no translation. Saren considered for a moment. Regulations said the helmet was her responsibility, her safety equipment, to be maintained according to strict protocols. But regulations also said a lot of things that humans had a habit of interpreting creatively. The paint was non-toxic, space-rated, and wouldn't compromise the helmet's integrity. And these children had lost their home, their world. They'd been drifting through corridors of an alien ship, surrounded by beings they'd only known through stories, displaced and frightened. "All right," Saren said, making a decision that would ripple farther than she could imagine. "But we do it carefully, okay?" She selected a brush with softer bristles, dipped it in the crimson paint, and carefully helped Kaptira hold it. The cub's paw was small and delicate, covered in fur that seemed to shimmer in the observation deck's artificial light. Together, they pressed the paint-dampened paw against the helmet's surface. When they lifted it away, a perfect 4-toed print remained, bright red against the swirling patterns Saren had already created. The cubs erupted in excited chitters. Kaptira stared at the mark with such profound wonder that Saren felt something tighten in her chest. Before she could say anything, the other 3 cubs were crowding forward, each wanting to add their own mark to the design. Saren helped each one in turn. Blue for the second cub, green for the third, silver for the smallest, who had to be lifted up to reach a good spot. The cubs placed their prints with surprising care, seeming to understand instinctively that they were adding to something important, not destroying it. When they finished, the helmet bore not just Siren's intricate patterns but also a constellation of small paw prints scattered across its surface like stars, or like hope. The cub sat back, admiring their work with soft trills of satisfaction. Cubtira looked up at Siren with an expression that transcended species gratitude, joy, and something like belonging. "It's perfect," Siren said quietly, and meant it. She didn't know then that images of that helmet would spread through the fleet. That other humans would start inviting refugee children to add their marks to their gear. That it would become a symbol of humanity's strange practice of turning the functional into the meaningful. Of making family from strangers, of choosing connection over protocol. She only knew that when she eventually wore that helmet on a spacewalk weeks later, surrounded by the infinite darkness of the cosmos, she would look at those small paw prints on the edge of her vision and remember that even in the vast emptiness of space, there were moments of unexpected beauty. The Galactic Council still didn't understand why humans did these things. But the Valkyrie cubs did. And that perhaps was enough. As the observation deck's lights dimmed for ship's night cycle, Siren sat with 4 small refugees who had found, for a moment, something like home. The helmet dried between them, decorated with dreams and determination and the simple, profound act of creating something together. In the end, that was the most human thing of all.